In my 46 years of broadcasting, I have never come across a story like this that deals with so many missing people and there's no answer. But we need 100 more media people to start talking about this story, to get the world to wake up and say, we demand answers.
That is so frustrating. Let's see. Okay. All right. Well, apparently my voice was muted for quite some time, but we're back now. Oh, hey, Justin. Thanks for following us.
Hey,
That
hey,
is so
thanks.
lame. As Farzan just said,
Okay.
I don't know if you heard him. He said, talking about paranormal or strange things apparently breaks everything. First Farzan's MacBook has an update right before we start, and
Yeah.
he can't join. So I'm like, okay, well I'll just wait. So we started late, and then we start, and my microphone isn't working. I just had to completely remove the input here and add it again. Didn't change anything. I have no idea what happened. I don't know. So
Oh, well, hopefully we don't go missing, you know?
yeah, it worked last time, and now I don't know. But anyway, so I guess you know what? I don't know. I don't know if anyone's been watching, but honestly, I'm okay with just completely starting over our topic here, because
We can start real quick. We
yeah.
talked about 3 cases,
So let's go back to
right?
the beginning here. So missing 411. We'll just have to
Okay,
edit. We'll
so
just have to edit this down because I don't know. I don't know.
yeah,
It's so ridiculous.
so we I mean, we didn't talk that much. I mean, the
No,
good
no.
thing is we caught it early on, so we have a
Early
guest today.
enough. God.
Yeah, well, we have a guest tonight, and he's listening right now, and it would be suck if he was there and talking, and we had no audio.
I know.
So,
Gosh. Jeez.
so
Um.
anyway, missing 411 and the missing 411, the hunted.
That's right. Yeah. So earlier I tried to present this. We were talking about it, but Missing 411 is a documentary series based on the books by David Paulides, who is a former detective. And there's a lot of information to unpack here, but I don't want to completely glaze over this completely, without missing everything again. But so basically, the book series first came out, and he was kind of like one of the first guys to get all of this information in one place, at least according to what you can find on the internet. His book series started in 2012, and now it's gone up until 2019, where he's touched on most of North America. And the first series documentary, just called Missing 411, is mostly about missing children in North America. And these missing children have mostly disappeared in national parks and places where you would feel safe, you would think, like campgrounds. And in this trailer here, we're seeing a couple there. They were actually in Idaho, Limhi County, and their child, a 2-year-old, Dior, went missing. And that's kind of the basis for the opening of this documentary, is just kind of like, what happened to this 2-year-old? Where did he go? Because they had the parents, grandpa, and the grandpa's friend all at this camp, and the kid just goes missing. That's kind of the basis there, and it's super strange. And you were saying, Farzan, earlier, so you had recalled this story, right?
Yeah, I was here, and the story was kind of a local hot story basically. It was all over the news, and every news, every radio station, local station you were listening, they were following up on this case to figure out what happens. If you look at this missing 411 and the missing 411 the hunted, the first one is actually about all kids who were missing in national parks. So if you look at that, you're like, the kid might, been goofing around and wandered and, fell into the creek or to the river or something like that. So you could somehow convince yourself that, there is nothing strange about it, right? However, the second one is about the adults. It's about the experienced hunters that they go missing. And this is a little bit hard to digest. And you cannot convince yourself that an avid hunter who knew the area, who been hunted in that area for his whole entire life, just vanished. It doesn't make any sense. Something that they said in the first chapter of this missing 411 The Hunted is that the FBI does not investigating missing of adults. And to me, that was pretty weird. And I was like, why? Why they don't do that?
Yeah, that was a huge, confusing moment for me as well. We got the trailer playing here now. So in The Hunted, they're talking about this. The FBI rarely ever goes and looks for adults when they're missing. And a lot of this has to do with, I believe, they think that if it's a suicide, it's not worth their effort. And I think that that's kind of dark to think about, that they don't really care almost. And the only times that or maybe they're just not allowed to care, I guess. I mean, obviously, but there's only a few cases here and there where they're allowed to go do something. And then their findings are not reported publicly in most cases.
Yeah.
They're sent back to their analysts in Virginia, and we don't hear anything. And I thought that was such a weird, aspect of the whole documentary for The Hunted, because they're talking about all these crazy cases, and we were talking about it earlier, but I didn't have audio, so we'll talk about that now. But the first case that they kind of bring up, or not the first one, but I forget if it was in the middle there, but we had talked about the guy in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Dell, who was a very experienced hunter again, like you were saying, and he had drove up to this elk mountain and outside of Santa Fe, and he was meeting a couple friends there, and they met up and they're about to go hunt some elk. And he goes 100 yards away from his truck because he doesn't really like to walk or travel really far, like you were saying. His wife is actually interviewed, and she mentions this. She says it doesn't make any sense. Why would he disappear? The guy freaking hates walking around. I don't know if it was because he had I think they said he had a limp or something like that, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But so he walks 100 yards. Builds a bit of a tree blind. He's hanging out, and his friends go marching off somewhere hiking, and they're gone for hours. They don't come back until dark, and by the time they get back, he's gone, and his truck's still there. And one of the interesting things they bring up is he left his GPS in the truck. GPS specifically for hunters, it comes in handy, because your cell service isn't going to work. So you might even have a satellite phone too if you're really, really prepared. But his GPS is in the truck.
This is funny, and they said in the documentary that maybe this was an innocent mistake. I mean, it wasn't anything. I don't know anything into it. Maybe we are reading too much into the GPS. But yeah, if you buy a GPS, you would probably, carry it around, right? But the interesting part in Mel's case is that they never found the gun and the bow and his belongings. Like, what happened to those? Like, it couldn't be an animal. Like, in some cases, they were, guessing, well, it might be an animal or something.
Yeah.
But if it was an animal, I mean, they don't carry your bow or your gun.
Right.
We never seen an elk hunting another elk with a bow.
Right. But so with this GPS topic, it kind of goes into this other one here. The other case that they brought up, which was in Montana, outside of the Crazies, the mountain range they call the Crazies up there. This guy had a GPS notifier on it, I believe a satellite phone or something like that, so they're able to track his position. He goes up there, another trained hunter who knows the mountain range pretty well because he's been up there many times. He's up there with two of his friends, and they thought the weather was fine. That was one of the things that was interesting of it. They looked into it. They go up there, and he's going to go to his cache, which is apparently where he stores whatever. I don't know if it's money or just something. It's like his hidden spot where he hides stuff. And he's supposed to go left at the fork, and it should be a really easy journey. His friends haven't seen him in a day, apparently, and they ping his GPS, and it shows him to the right at the very edge of the screen, which was alarming because that means he's somewhere else. He's far away.
Yeah, 6 miles. He was like 6 miles down the road from the fork.
Right. And so he's over there doing that, and they're like, okay, what the hell? So then they call search and rescue because they can't find him. And this is where it gets interesting, and the Hunted touches on this a lot better, I think, than the Missing 411, the first documentary, because in Missing 411, the Hunted, they talk a lot about the search and rescue methods and how they go about it. And David Paulides in this picture here, he talks about the things that he's found in almost all of these cases, the same kind of occurrences that he can't really pin down why they occur. Number one was weather. The weather suddenly changes as soon as a person goes missing, which I believe is a coincidence, but very, very strange. Two, he talks about Boulder Fields. A lot of times people are missing or they're near these vast boulder fields that come down the side of a mountain. It's basically just like the rock, coming down from the mountain, and it's always changing. And I thought that was a really interesting aspect because I could totally see someone going missing in those because they're always changing throughout the day. The rock is just shifting, so their body, or their remains could be lost in there.
But that could be, you could say that for kids, but for an adult,
right,
it's a bit harder to believe.
Well, that's why I mentioned remains, because a lot of times I feel, they're not finding blood, they say, which is what you would find if a wild animal, like a cat or a bear or something grabbed them. But you're totally right. It doesn't make any sense for them to not find anything. And then in this case in Montana, the strangest thing was the search and rescue. They're combing the area over and over and over. And then suddenly a pair of boots show up, which, and that's not the only thing they find, in the days after this. They find those shoes and they're thinking, okay, maybe the guy had hypothermia. And that's one of the cases of being hypothermic is you ditch some things, like your boots. And they're like, okay, he can't be too far off. And then again, they find nothing again. And then later they find his bag, like you were saying, and it has his gun and his bow and a thermos just sitting there open, which is so freaking weird. And it was not only that, but it was near someone's property. So he was within eye line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was. So he was. There were, and it snowed the night before. So without a boot, did he walk like about 11 miles or something? Like, how could you even walk 1 mile in the snow without your boots and then, coming across somebody's property, like a few yards away from you, and you just sitting on top of the hill and watching them, and then you leave your backpack and your gun and everything, and boom, vanished. So this is actually one of the common trends in these cases. And most of the times when the search and rescue are starting their search and rescue efforts, they do not find anything. They do not find the body. They do not find any belongings or anything. So they stop and they're like, okay, so we can't find him. It's been like 2 weeks we are searching this area. And then, a few days after, somebody else or a new group start, another search and rescue, and they come across some of their belongings like, firearms or bow or hunting jacket, stuff like that. So this is another trend. The
Right.
other trend, before I forget, I took notes because it was very fascinating documentary, is that most disappearances are near water. Like the first case that we talked about that happened in New York, the guy named Tom, it was around a local pound over there. The one in Crazies, it was near a river. So it is really interesting that there are some common trends.
Yeah, totally. And with the children cases, I completely can see a lot of these children going missing near rivers or near these, boulder fields. But one of the strange things, like in the first one that I thought really stood out, was the case of the child that was with a group of people, and they had I think it was in Colorado, I believe, and they were going on a trail. The child,
the church camp.
No, it was the one where the dad worked in a small town store.
The
Yeah,
dad was working there. Yeah,
Yeah, so that story really just like, it kind of like was different than the other ones in my opinion, because there's so much to it that just doesn't make sense. Like they find the clothes laid out, and all they can find of this child after a lot of time of not finding anything. Again, with the search and rescue, this is another thing where they'll look, they can't find anything, and they comb the area many times and they don't find anything, and then suddenly it's like it drops out of the sky. Like, where did it come from? They find the kid's shoes, his pants, and his shirt, and then a piece of his skull. That's it, and a tooth, I believe, but that's it. And it's so weird.
like that.
And that kind of thing, like they don't find any blood, they don't find any damage to the clothing that would appear to be from an animal, just natural, from like bugs taking stuff or birds taking it for their nest. That's about it. So it's like as if the clothes had been there the whole time, but they didn't find anything after many searches.
So all of the cases are strange, but the last two cases, the one that is happening with Breck Phillips in California, I think it was Sierra Mountains or Sierra Camp, and the Ohio case, they were kind of supernatural. It wasn't something earthy, I would say. So one of them is actually like, they were talking about, and this guy Ron, they were like
Right.
camping in Sierra Mountains, and he was with his friend. They were like hearing noises, but at some point when they checked outside, they were not seeing anybody. So they were like, okay, he decided to record the audio, and we have the audio. Maybe that's the good time to bring in our guest too, or if you.
Yeah, let me go ahead and play that then here.
Okay.
So we have a clip of the documentary they uploaded to YouTube on their channel, which, by the way, you should check out on YouTube, called the Can-Am Missing Project. You can subscribe to them on YouTube. So we'll give it a shot here. Let me bring this up. So this is a clip from the documentary.
We really didn't realize what we were dealing with. We
I
still
can't
don't
hear
know what
anything
we're dealing
good.
with, but it was something.
I'm not sure.
Oh, really? Let me see here.
Yeah.
Let me test it. Technical difficulties, people.
Very unusual. Strange
Okay.
things happen,
So
and most of
apparently,
the stuff happened in the evening.
I think we can hear it.
folks that are okay.
Oh, yeah, they hear it. Okay, let me...
Realize what we were dealing with. We still don't know what we're dealing with, but it was something very unusual. strange things happen, and most of the stuff happened in the evening time, just at dusk, nighttime, like now. The first time I ever heard anything was later in '71. I came back up with the guys, and as soon as it starts getting dark, we'd go in. Sometimes you might hear a grunt or a whoop or a big blowing sound or something like that, and that's when you know you want to get inside the shelter, because you still don't know what you're dealing with. Whatever it is big, very, very big. We all go inside, close the shelter door, and that's a log that we put between these trees, and then we'd strap it inside a cable, and then they would start making their sounds. And that was in '71 when I first started hearing them, and we started recording them.
There's two of them across the creek at the big rocks. There's two of them across the creek at the big rocks. That's our job.
We were all talking about maybe having to shoot our way out. You're just sitting there, all of you are kind of petrified. You're just waiting for the walls to break open, something reach in there and grab you and hold you up, and waiting for the light to break in the cracks of the walls, and it never happened. That's the strange part, because you hear it over there, but you don't see it over there. As time went on, '72, same thing. You know, whatever it was, we thought might be trying to scare us out. Maybe this is their territory, but we don't know. We can only guess at why they were doing what they were doing, and that they were observing us, that's for sure.
All right. So yeah, like I was saying earlier, you can check out these documentaries. The first one is Missing 411 on Hulu, and then the second one, Missing 411 The Hunted, is available on Amazon Prime. But that was a clip that we heard there of what supposedly is a recording that the guy in the video there, Ron Moorhead, recorded in 1971 of what he believes is Bigfoot, which I don't know if I'm necessarily a believer myself, but I guess if you see things, you see them, you know, or you hear them, and it's crazy. I've had experiences myself. And I know people who have had experiences with Bigfoot, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. I'm going to bring him in here. Just give us 1 second. Let's see.
It is interesting while you're working on it, Devin. I think it's worth to mention that they sent the audio file to a professor in some university. And I
Right.
forgot what the professor was or what he was doing, but he analyzed the audio and he concluded that it is from an animal or some sort of living which is larger than human. So that was the analysis of the audio.
Yeah, and actually, before we continue, I actually have a page here from Ron Moorhead, the guy that we're talking about. He has a page here that kind of talks about how people are calling it a hoax, and a lot of the questions they ask. And he says, consider this. The camp, the Sierra camp, is over 8 miles walking from the closest road. The trip is exhausting. The men, about halfway into the trip, would often leave the forest trail and proceed different ways to the camp so as not to leave an obvious trail. The camp is over 8,000 feet in elevation. In the fall, it would snow and freeze. The men would always look for evidence of other people that may have been in the area. Rarely was any other human within miles of the camp. So what he's saying is the only people who knew about this camp were him and his close friends and family. This is a very secluded area. So this is the idea that he's saying here, is that there's no way that this is some person, you know, trying to hoax them or whatever. That's their belief anyway. And then he says this here: who could have pulled off a Bigfoot hoax? And he says, who could have made that long trip to the Sierra camp carrying equipment needed without leaving a sign? How would they know in advance if we were there? How would anyone do such a thing in cold, freezing weather? Who could make sounds like that we recorded? Like you were saying, that they sent it to someone for analysis and they couldn't figure out, you know, how that could be created by human vocal cords, which I thought was interesting. He says here, the linguists say that many of these vocalizations are non-human because of the vocal range exhibited. Linguists say that human vocal cavity cannot duplicate these vocalizations. And then he had a sound engineer expert, Dr. Kierlin, who reported the recordings and sounds as spontaneous with no sign of reproduction or tape alteration. But again, this is the stuff he's posted, on his website here. But it's just interesting to hear both sides of it. But we're going to bring in our friend here. So let me go ahead and get that going. Just waiting for Farzan to join the call here. All right, and then Farzan, go ahead and enable your webcam again. There's probably a better way to do this, but this is what we're doing. All right. Let's see here. Can you guys hear me? Oh, there we go. We're having some fun tonight.
Actually, this is not a technical difficulty. This is the first one we are having a guest, so
I know everything's broken. Sorry about that. Thanks for joining us, Dan. How's it going?
Hey, it's going good.
Awesome.
Hey, Dan.
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. I went ahead and paused your guys' Twitch feed so I wouldn't get the echo. But
I caught Farzan having an echo there, and I caught it pretty late in that video, unfortunately. But
that's all good.
We learn.
Fun, right?
We learn as we go. We're doing all right.
Interesting topic. Something I've studied off and on for a long time. And before we get into one of the stories I have,
sure.
You're talking about all the hunters that have gone missing, and David Paulides in some of his podcasts, he's touched on some of the Idaho cases that aren't quite as popular, but they're out there. So back in, I want to say it was 2011, I could be wrong on that. There was a hunter that went missing up in the Atlanta area, not too far from Boise, 68 miles roughly. And it's an area that I backpack in frequently. And based on what I heard of the case and where he disappeared, I was just like shocked that a person could disappear there, because it's pretty much one way in, one way out. And there's some drainages you can go into, but I don't think they ever found his body. And that was just a really bizarre case. But, hunters go missing all the time. Sometimes there's logical explanations, sometimes there is not.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the more frustrating things about this whole series, as far as being a viewer. I don't personally know any hunters that have gone missing, but I have a aunt who has had a best friend go missing, and they never found anything. And it's just one of those things that they found. I believe they had a series. I don't remember if it was the nightly report or something like that, but I'll have to look that up again. But they actually had an entire hour episode on this guy. His name was Jeremy. But it's people go missing, and it's frustrating when there's no results. People want to know what happened. So 100%.
Really hard on the family. Really
Yeah.
hard on the family.
Definitely.
So, last week we did talk about the missing people, and you, Devin, kind of touched on the cave system, and that the map of the missing people actually aligned with the map of caves in the U.S. But now, with this, the hunted, when they touched on, the guy Ron alluded to, his beliefs that would be, Bigfoot. And then we have the Ohio case, and Dan actually watched the documentaries. So in the Ohio case, that lady, I forgot her name, she saw a strange blob that she explained, like moving from one tree to the other tree. And then that was his niece, who was the marching band, one of the high schools nearby, watched like a light or some unnatural things in the air. However, I mean, this is very crazy to see these. I mean, there was no missing person in the last case, like the last chapter, as he called it in the documentary. Nobody went missing, but it was just very bizarre to have such an experience. I mean, that was her backyard. I mean, they have a really huge property, and she went home like late evening, and she saw some weird things.
Yeah, strange phenomena.
Yeah.
If you spend enough time in the backcountry, you will experience some unusual phenomena. And I'm saying this as a skeptic. I'm pretty skeptical of this kind of stuff, but some things just can't be explained by science as we know it so far.
Yeah, most definitely. I've had experiences myself, and I don't really talk about them, and it's interesting to hear other people talk about it, and I can totally relate to not understanding the unknown, and it's alarming the amount of people that have experienced this kind of stuff. But it's even more with watching this Missing 411, The Hunted. It was even more alarming for me to see just how, like, these people are just going about their business like they normally would, and then suddenly they're just gone. That's right. It just freaks you out. I don't know.
This sounds like a good preface for a future podcast, something strange and unusual.
Yeah. I would love to go into UFOs more. I have a story about that.
Oh man, me too.
So
yeah, I've got several.
Oh, great. Well, maybe we should definitely do that again, and we'll have you on if you're welcome. Okay. If you'd like to do that. So yeah,
that'd be a lot of fun.
But so you were saying you had a. Yeah. Oh, I don't know I think we were both talking Farzan, but if you if you would like to tell your story now, that'd be awesome.
Right. So it's funny, David Politis is part of this because this is a story that happened to me when I was a teenager. So we're talking the 1980s.
Okay.
And driving home, and I was trying to think of roughly the year, and I think it was probably 84 or 85. So I'm an older guy, not too old, right, Farzan? And in 2012, I was back in the same area, and I was telling a buddy of mine that I frequently go camping with, and we frequently bring podcasts like 411 podcasts and listen to them around the campfire at night.
Oh, nice.
Atmosphere. It's always fun, and it makes good conversation. But I took him back. I told him the story, and I took him to the area, and we camped out there, and he was freaked out the whole time. But let me back up. So this took place 84, probably summer of 84. I was backpacking with my grandfather and my best friend. And so, this was a time before all the modern electronics we have now. Are you familiar with the Frank Church Wilderness?
No, I'm not. I know who Frank Church is, though.
Right. So the Frank Church Wilderness is a large area. I think it's like the largest area in the lower 48 states of wilderness. And it's right here in Idaho.
Oh, I didn't.
If you like backpacking, hunting, fishing, and all that, it is beautiful area. You could literally disappear in there. So we were going to a place called the Bighorn Crags. It's out of Chalice. And so driving from Boise to get to the trailhead, it's probably a good 6 to 7 hour drive. About 2 hours out of Chalice, a dirt road. And we had driven up there, with the intent of camping at the base campground. There's a campsite there, and then backpacking in the next morning. So we were sitting around the campfire at night, and my grandfather at the time, he was in his, I'd say his late 60s. He backpacked clear up into his 80s. Tough guy. But we're sitting around the campfire, and I'm a teenager. I was like 15 at the time, and we start hearing some weird sounds out in the distance. And looking back in my experience spending time in the outdoors, I've heard all kinds of game. I've heard elk, I've heard wolves howl, I've heard cougars scream, and I have yet to find a sound that was like what I heard. And at the intro in that video in the Sierras, the screaming sound that you hear in the beginning was quite similar to it, although what I heard was a lot deeper. So we're sitting around the campfire and we hear these screaming sounds out in the distance. And I'm looking at my friend, he's looking at me, and we're like, what the heck is that? And so I asked my grandfather, and I'm like, what is that? And this is a guy that, his family was a pioneer out here in Idaho, clear back to the 1890s. He spent all of his life kicking around the woods in Idaho. And he was he was the great generation, really down to earth. Not a whole lot fazed him. And he just kind of looked at me and he says, I don't rightly know. And that freaked us out more, because if grandpa doesn't know, then what the heck is it? So the sound went on for, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or something like that. And then it just quieted down, and then you just hear the normal background sounds of nature, chirping and other animals moving out in the woods and the wind blowing and all that. And we kind of just forgot about it, went to bed. So the next morning we wake up, get our packs ready, and at the Crags campground, it's an actual campsite where they have water spigots and stuff at different campsites. And my friend Harris, he went down to fill up his canteen and with water, and he comes back a few minutes later and he's like, you got to see this, you got to see this. And so I walked down to where he was at, and there's a water spigot, and then just below the water spigot, it was kind of a marshy area from all the water runoff, because it constantly drips up there. And he goes, check this out. And there was a footprint, and it was one of those, is this really real or is it not real? So it was a footprint, and size wise, I couldn't tell you, 12, 15 inches, I don't know, but it was a huge footprint, nothing human like, as far as I remember as a teenager. And we look at each other and we're like, Bigfoot, because we'd grown up watching the stories out of Northern California, the tape there from the Happy Camp area, Patterson film. And, we ran back and was telling my grandfather about it, and he just kind of scoffed and was like, yeah, whatever, let's start this hiking trip. And that was pretty much the extent of it. I mean, it's not quite as exciting as at the Sierra camp, but it's something that stuck in my mind for all these years.
No, that's crazy.
It would be amazing if you had like a camera or cell phone, back then. It would be amazing.
Oh yeah, I would have loved to have captured the audio. I've been back to the area multiple times, never heard it. There was another sighting in a place called Yellow Jacket, which, as the crows flies, within 10 miles of there. I camped up there 2 years ago, didn't see anything unusual. So to this day, I don't really know. I mean, I have no idea what it was.
Yeah, that's, when you were talking about it, I didn't realize that was called the Frank Church Wilderness. Because I know where Chalice, and that's not that far. I was like, oh, really? Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those nice hidden spots in Idaho. We have a lot of beautiful wilderness here.
Yeah,
and I've been blessed to spend a lot of time in the outdoors. Seen some unusual things, but that's probably one of the most unusual as far as unusual sounds in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And the footprints that you're describing, that's pretty much right on what other people have said they've seen or measured in the wild. And I think it's really interesting. Most recently, I just watched this. I don't know if you've heard of the Survivor Man series.
Oh yeah, Les Stroud.
Yeah. So he was actually in the Missing 411 documentary as well.
Yeah.
And he has a season on Bigfoot, which I happened to start watching just because we were going to be talking about this. I was like, I'll give it a shot and watch a couple episodes. And he has an episode in Northern California, and it's honestly, for anyone who's a skeptic of Bigfoot, I would say the that series is really good because he's a no bullshit kind of guy. He's a survivalist.
I like Les Stroud.
Yeah, he's.
I've followed him for many years. I was involved with some outdoor survival groups for a long time.
Nice.
Not necessarily with Les, but with a guy named Ron Hood. And this topic pretty much came up frequently. You know, whenever we'd sit around the campfire, it was always a topic of discussion. The strange and unusual you've experienced.
Yeah, I would say that makes the best campfire talk for sure.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Tother agree. And if I could,
go ahead.
If I could,
Go ahead,
I just want to. Yeah, there's another website, or actually a YouTube channel that David Politis is kind of associated with. It's called How to Hunt. I don't know if you guys have heard of that or not.
No, I haven't.
So the guy that runs it is he's a hunter guide out of British Columbia, and for years he put up videos on different aspects of hunting. And the past, I want to say, year and a half or so, he's kind of opened up to the Bigfoot phenomena and different experiences he's had up there. And the area he's at in British Columbia is like serious Bigfoot country. And if you get the time, check out his channel, listen to some of the stories that he goes over there. It's pretty interesting.
And that's How to Hunt?
How to Hunt.
Okay.
Yes.
Sweet. Yeah, we'll check that out. Whoops. And oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, when Dan was talking about the stories, campfire stories, when you're out and it is night and you can't see anything, it is spooky, right?
Right.
We can all agree on that. And there is a scientific reason, not even out during the night, even when you're alone at home, that it says when there is no audio, your brain starts making audio and noises. However, with the recording that this guy Ron had and the audio that you heard, there is no way that a human brain could cause that, and there is no way the scientists approve and confirm that there is no way that could be from a human. This is not made by a human. So I was gonna say that when you're out and it is dark and quiet, sometimes you may hear stuff and it might be in your head, but there are something that is real and it's not in your head.
Yep, I understand that phenomena. It's I think that's pretty common, especially for people that don't spend a lot of times in the woods. If you spend a lot of time in the mountains, you learn to listen to what's out there. It's actually kind of quiets the mind because you focus on what you can hear in the background. And it's interesting. I mean, you can hear a lot of wildlife in the middle of the night, or you can hear the ground moving, like all the recent earthquakes, for instance.
Yeah, totally.
You can hear the rocks popping and falling down in the scree fields, the boulder fields you were talking about earlier. So I don't discount that the human mind can definitely trick you into a lot of things, but when you catch it on audio, that's something else.
Yeah, and
that's the evidence.
Specifically in that Les Stroud Survivor Man series, the Bigfoot episodes, he's in Northern California, and he's talking about these knocking sounds on the trees.
Sounds and the whooping sounds.
So that's one of the more common things is you'll hear knocks, and it's like a signal almost. I thought that was really interesting. And then one of the crazy things that he sees in that episode, specifically in Northern California, is he'll find these trees that are just bent in a certain way. Some of them are bent in opposite directions, which doesn't make any sense because if it was weather related, they should be going all in the same direction, like down or whatever.
I've actually seen that. My camping buddy Jerry, we've discussed that many times, where we found trees that are bent in a direction that's opposite of the way the snow would fall and bend them over. And I try to find a logical reason, and sometimes I'm just like, I don't really know, man.
Yeah, he was talking about it in that episode that he's been told by people who are, I guess, what you call a Bigfoot expert. One of them, he points out, I remember, they're pointed like this, and he's like, that means, according to my friend who's an expert, that to keep out of this area. One of the other episodes I caught was in Tennessee, which I was like, I wouldn't expect Bigfoot stories in Tennessee, but you never know, I guess. He's talking about how people will leave stuff like a sign for them, for whatever these things are. They'll arrange some stones in a line, and then when you come back the next day or whenever it is you come back, you'll find. He said one of the more common things was the stones will be moved like 3 to the bottom, 1 at the top, and then the rest are thrown out of like 7 or so stones. And he said they don't know what that means or whether or not that actually proves anything, but it's still like a really weird thing that they've been able to have like happen multiple times. I just don't know what that means, but I don't know.
I actually know a guy. It's a friend of a friend that lives up near Riggins, Idaho.
Okay.
And he swears up and down that he is in communication with these, whatever they are, entities, 8 men, whatever you want to call it. And he leaves gifts out for them and they replace them with rocks. Now, I know this person fairly well, and sometimes I take what he says with a grain of salt, but I am really curious about going up there and checking it out just to see for myself.
Yeah.
So here's my question. Here's my question. You mentioned, Devin, that the guys putting rocks and stuff like that. There are like so many hunters here, and they put out a camera, right? Really good quality cameras out there in the wood, close to the hunting season, just to see what kind of animals passing that route, so they can go there and camp there and hunt, right? I never heard of anything or seen a video of them catching any unnatural or some sort of weird humans animals.
Oh yeah.
Check out that How to Hunt page. They cover that. They've caught some interesting things on hunting cameras.
As far as like, okay.
There's been several things they've caught, and I am by no means an expert on it.
Yeah.
Some of them are unusual shapes, unusual eyes that don't fit the normal mode of a typical animal in the woods at night or in the daytime. They've had cameras that have been moved, pulled up in the tree without any obvious interference, like something grabbing it and dragging up a tree. You just got to check out his YouTube channel.
For sure.
When I first heard about it, I spent a couple of days going through all the videos. It's some interesting stuff. I can't say one way or the other what it is, but they've caught some interesting images, so it's worth checking out.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely check those out. And I've heard stories of that too, and it's not just like it's pretty common, I guess, for more intelligent animals to know that there's a camera. I've seen videos of like a mountain lion going right towards the camera, looking right at it because it knows that there's something there. I think that's really interesting in general. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like this, mysterious creature that people are not really able to, say whether or not exists, could do something like that. I mean, if it's as intelligent as we think it is, then it totally makes sense that they would go and mess with stuff like that. So,
right.
Why we go that far? If you watch, I watch quite a lot of American funny videos on Hulu. So I love that show. There are like some funny videos in there. They have a section for dogs and cats, and they are showing lots of videos that this teenager put the camera on doing something, and the cat was just standing in front of the camera as if the cat knows what that is and he wants to be on film, and years ago, why we go again that far? Years ago, there was this monkey who grabbed the camera of a photographer and took a selfie. And they I don't know who, but they claimed that the monkey has the copyright rights over that photo because he took the picture. So yeah, that is funny.
Well, animals are a lot smarter than we give them credit for a lot of times. And, psychologists will say, well, they don't have the same kind of cognitive functions that we have as humans and whatever. But I've had plenty of dogs my life, and they're smart. And wild animals have an edge over domestic animals because they live out in nature, and it's a dog eat dog world. Pardon the pun. Where they have to sharpen those skills, those cognitive functions they have for their environment. So I do not doubt that they could recognize something man-made at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the more interesting, I was thinking of this story. One of the first like documented stories of Bigfoot was Jerry Crew in the Northern California Six Rivers Forest. I don't know if you've heard that. Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Okay. I actually have like an old book. It's just called Bigfoot. And I got it from, I think, my library, my public library or whatever. They just sold it at one point. So I was able to just pick it up for nothing. And that story is really interesting to me. But then again, there's always these people that try to disprove later on, similar to the footage that the supposed only video we have of Bigfoot crossing crossing the stream. There's always been people that come out of the woodwork to claim hoax, you know.
Right. You'll find that everywhere, whatever the topic is. People want to find logical explanations, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And many times they're right, but sometimes we just can't explain stuff.
I know, and like I was saying, I think taking this for what it is, especially with these, if anyone is looking for real evidence, or just real evidence of strange, rather, watch these missing 411 documentaries, because there's stuff in here that is going to frustrate you because there's no explanation, and we don't have an explanation, but we know that there's stuff out there that we don't understand. So that's
makes me want to stay away from national parks.
I know. And I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, watching these makes me want to start carrying more, a firearm with me if I go out camping. I'm just like, cause I've never really practiced that. And I'm like, maybe I should. Like,
I've done it my whole life, and I've never had a cause to use it. I've had run-ins with black bears and such, but I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah. I never.
This is interesting. Devin, you mentioned national park in the first documentary, Missing 411. At the end of the documentary, they tried to get some numbers from national parks of how many people are missing on a yearly basis.
Right.
And national parks actually refuses to release those numbers, which is, this is again suspicious. Why they are not releasing that,
Yeah, and if you actually go to the Missing 411 website, it's actually canamissing.com, CANAM missing.com. They have a petition on there that you can sign that's going towards the Department of Interior to release this information. So if you're interested in doing that... What's that?
I was saying there is always a petition for something.
Oh, I know. I don't know how much this will matter, but I mean it's better than nothing, I guess. And I do think it's super messed up that this is something that they're keeping under wraps. I don't know. It's very weird.
Okay, well, my final thought is that Dan and I camp together, but mostly during daylight. Hike together, mostly during daylight. But if I were to go somewhere, to camp overnight or backpacking, I would definitely buy one of those hunting cameras to see if I can cut something,
Not a bad idea.
Actually, probably be worth it. Yeah, I agree. And also, if you do go hiking or camping again, make sure you don't separate. That's the number one thing I learned from this.
Yeah.
At least...
It's funny because I've been hiking, backpacking my whole life, spent a career in the military, and I'm comfortable on my own. But the more I've been exposed to, what's been going on with 411 and all that, it makes me a little bit more leery, leaving a better plan of where I'm going and sticking to that plan. So if I do disappear, somebody knows where to come look for me.
Yeah. And if you are going to, go out on your own, just, let someone know, just tell people where you're going and when you'll be back. That's kind of the best thing you can do, for sure. So,
yep.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, great. We should do it again. Talk about UFOs sometime. I've
Yeah.
got some fun stories on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to telling my story about that. So we should definitely do
I'd
that.
like to hear it.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear it.
maybe we should plan that next Wednesday then, if that's cool with you
Okay.
guys.
It
Okay.
works for
We
me.
should
Go ahead,
We
Farzan.
should
Sorry.
we should watch something about UFOs.
Well,
We can talk about the movie.
I
What
just
is the good UFO movie?
I just watched while we were waiting for the stream to start. Dan recommended The Hunt for Skinwalker Ranch. I actually just put it on a few hours ago, and I watched it because it's only 2 hours long. So I was like, oh sure, I'm just sitting here, might as well. I watched it. That's
Okay, yeah, send me the link.
sure. Yeah, it's on. It's actually on Hulu. So if you just go on Hulu, but I'll send you a link too. And I believe the Bob Lazar. I haven't watched that one yet either. Maybe I'll give that one a shot too. It's the same director, Jeremy Corbell.
Yeah.
So.
It's both are pretty good. I got turned on to the book back when it first came out.
Okay.
Oh man, back in the '90s. George Knapp, who
Yeah.
through Bob Lazar. He was also the one who wrote the book, The Hunt for Skinwalker.
Yeah.
And they go in depth on the Skinwalker Ranch, and it's quite a fascinating story. I grew up around Native American mythology, if you want to call it that, culture.
Okay.
And it's interesting. Definitely worth discussing.
Are
Yeah.
you talking about the movie Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers?
It's on Netflix. Yeah. It's the same
Yeah,
director.
that's on Netflix. Yeah, I've seen that. What is the one on Hulu?
It's called The Hunt for Skinwalker Ranch, and it's based on a book, like he was saying, by George Knapp. I actually knew.
Oh yeah, Joe Rogan was talking about it.
Yeah. So he had Joe Rogan had George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell on his podcast recently, and then before that, he had Jeremy Corbell and Bob Lazar on there. Pretty interesting interviews for sure.
Worth listening
Okay, I'll
to.
watch that.
Yeah.
I can add some stories into that from back in the '90s.
Awesome.
When I was really into the UFO stuff. So we can get into that another time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely a good topic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
Awesome.
it.
All right.
All right.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Yep, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining us.
Right.
All right. Let's see here.
Okay.
So I guess we can head to the outro here. If you are joining us, thanks for listening. Make sure to follow us if you haven't. Like we were saying, we're going to be trying to go live every Wednesday. And then after we're done, I'm uploading it to my YouTube channel, which I should put in the description, actually. But otherwise, we have a blog that you can go to also down below. Just click on that for older archived podcasts that we have done. I think we're up to number 18 now.
Yeah.
This is our 18th episode. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. But we had fun. We had some technical difficulties today, which was fun.
Yeah, we learned some new stuff
Well,
today,
the worst part about technical difficulties is they occur and you don't know they're happening because everything is the same as last time. And I'm just like talking, blah, blah, blah. Nothing's coming out. Oh my God. Yeah, super fun. So, but we got through it and we caught back up to where we were. So I'm glad that we got it fixed before we went too long. But yeah.
So next week we're gonna have Dan back again, talking about UFOs. So we'll see. It should be a good conversation. Looking forward to it. If you guys, so here's my suggestion. If you guys listening to this, either live or through the YouTube, if you have any experience with UFO, maybe we can have you on. Maybe we can have more than one people on and talk about UFOs. That would be
Absolutely.
super cool.
Absolutely. And if you like far as I was saying, if you have any suggestion at all, below here, where am I pointing right here? Down below, there is a suggestion box that you can post in actually that pretty much anything you want to give us a topic or whatever, just post it in there. And if you want to get in contact with us, go to the blog, just click the contact button, send us a message on there, or reach out to us on Twitter. Also works, whatever. So yeah, I look forward to next week talking about UFOs. I have my own experience as well, so that's going to be pretty awesome to talk about. So thanks for joining us. We'll go ahead
Thank you
and
guys. Bye.
let the music play us out.